Hello and happy Friday. I hope I'm actually live this time. Um, as usual, we'll give it a few moments to see if anyone's joining. I'm just going to give Ellie a message to make sure I am actually live because I still don't know. I'm not sure whether any of you can actually see me. Great, good. It looks like I am actually live. And views are going up. Brilliant. Well, thank you to everybody who's joined very promptly. As usual, I'll just chat for a little bit while we give people more time to join. Well, yeah. Hello, everybody. Happy Friday. It's good to be back after a week's break. Um, and I must admit, I've been particularly looking forward to this because it's been a rather odd week, hasn't it? And I think this may be the most socializing I actually do all week, albeit digitally. Um, so yeah, I hope actually all of you would be looking forward to this. I know we're not all in the same room, but we're still communicating, and a lot of us kind of see each other every week. So yeah, this is I've really been looking forward to this. And yeah, this is a first for me. I'm actually doing it not from the office, but from my home. I'm currently tucked away in a very quiet corner of my flat. I would give you the full tour, um, but my wife is also working from home, and I don't know whether she'd appreciate me wandering around the flat with a camera. Maybe next time, anyway. Hello, William. Hello, Anne. Great. So brilliant. We've got quite a few people here, so we will kick off. Hello, everybody. That's what I like to see. It's nice to see everybody's names popping up. Hi, Chris. Nice to see you here. Haven't seen you for a while, actually. Back in the land of the living after months of illness, which continues. Sorry to hear that, Chris. Hope you're getting better soon. About to get quickly banished. Not sure which is best entertainment at present, Alex, Boris, or the mindless daytime TV I've been watching for months of Mr. Fry. Well, actually, that's why we're actually doing this a little bit earlier, sorry, than we normally do. Because obviously the usual slot that I do, 5 o'clock, is also taken by Boris. And while I do like to think these are quite interesting, I'm not sure I could compete with the official COVID-19 statement from the PM himself. Hello, Miko. Yeah, this is a bit like FMP Cribs Find My Past style. And also, big thanks to Miko and a big thanks to everybody else that tuned in yesterday for our inaugural Ask Me Anything session with none other than Miko himself. Because one of the things I was actually quite looking forward to talking to you all about is the program of daily community things we have planned on our Facebook page over, well, I guess it could be the coming weeks. We genuinely don't know how long this is going to go on for. So yeah, big thanks to Miko for kicking that off next yesterday. And of course, as this whole situation is unfolded very, very quickly, we're still responding to it ourselves and still playing catch up, as I'm sure most of you and the rest of the country are. So we're still planning it all, but over the next, well, for the foreseeable future, until we are released and we're no longer cooped up in our own homes, um, we want to do a series of daily activities to bring us all together, keep us all in touch, keep us all talking. Because it may sound a bit cringy, but it's true. You know, self-isolating does not mean that we have to become isolated. You know, we make people watch this from all over the place, people as far as the US. Some people even get up in the wee small hours in Australia to watch these, and I'm still not quite sure. I'm grateful they do. Wow, it always amazes, it always impresses me. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is that through, simply by the fact that we are all interested in family history, we already have something in common. We all have a passion in common, and that means that we already form a community, and we might not even realize that ourselves. So we've been thinking, whilst we're all stuck off indoors, family history can be a great and actually quite a worthwhile distraction while we are all cooped up indoors. Um, I guess it's pretty similar to picking up a new skill. You know, you're entertaining yourself, but you're also doing something that benefits you, I believe. At the same time, you're learning more about yourself, you're learning more about your family, and kind of personalizing the past, I guess, where your family sits in the greater scheme of history. So yeah, as well as it being a great distraction. It's also something you can do without leaving your house. You know, um, again, it might sound cringy, but I do think this is true. Family history kind of does let you travel through time from your own sofa or table or computer desk or whatever you're choosing to do it from. You really can explore not only places but periods simply through your computer screen. So we're really hoping that anybody who is feeling a bit bored, a little bit isolated, um, knows our Facebook page can be a place where you can come and hang out and chat to like-minded people who also love family history, and as well as getting a bit of fun out of it yourself and brushing up your research skills in the process, you might actually be helping someone who is feeling quite isolated and is struggling with the whole situation at the moment. So that's where our thought process is behind that. And yeah, we're planning to do more Ask Me Anything sessions like the one we did yesterday with Miko, which seemed to go very, very well. Sorry, Miko, for making you clash with Boris. That wasn't intended. Um, but as I said, we're going to be announcing more of a kind of program, so you know exactly what's happening when it's happening. Early next week, we're all going to catch up and bring our heads together and discuss it ourselves. Um, so quick look at the comments. Hi, Jackie from Hove. Hello, Linda. Hello, William. Hello, Rosie. Oh, Chris, you already had 16 days of self-isolation. I can see me being, wow, that is long. Wow. Hello, Ivy. How are you? Hello, Cindy. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I must admit, I don't quite have the. I was quite jealous of Miko's backdrop. It looked like he was in some kind of amazing old tower somewhere, I thought. Um, Yeah, that's a good comment from Chris Miko. I can't imagine how many family history breakthroughs might take place in this time, with so many eager genealogists cooped up and in need of activities to pursue. Well, that leads me on very nicely to our question of the week. I think we start these videos with every single time, just to again get the conversation rolling, something just to kick the comments off. And my question of the week this week, it's kind of an obvious one really, is how are you going to be filling your time? That doesn't have to be genealogy related. If you've got any tips that you could share with the rest of us for coping with the cabin fever, do let us know, because I certainly am starting to go a little bit odd. I've been doing a lot of pacing, and little things that were bothering me previously have started to. Like I left some coffee pods in the shop the other day, and normally that wouldn't bother me, but I just couldn't stop thinking about it for like 5 hours, and it got so bad I had to go out and buy more. Um, but yeah, what are you going to be doing to fill your time? And if you have set yourself any particular family history research goals, what are they? And what are you hoping to achieve? I can tell you what mine is, because I actually have really kind of revisited my family tree this week. I spend so much time doing research for other people that I do neglect my own. And every time I hit a brick wall, I kind of take lengthy breaks from my own tree. But obviously, loads of things have happened on Findmypast since I've last really got serious about my own research. And this was the first time I mean, I've used tree to tree hints a lot, but this was the first time I really, really went hard on my tree to tree hints and kind of added as many as I physically could, thoroughly checking them all, I may add, because that is very important with tree to tree hints. If you accept an incorrect hint, that can lead to a whole chain of mistakes that gets very complicated to undo. Just to remind you of that. But I was delighted to uncover a whole new branch in my family tree I didn't even know existed, with a fantastic surname. They were called the Scattergoods or Scattergood, however you want to describe it. Um, Oh, sorry, I've just seen your comment, Linda. Thank you. No, we really do hope that, yeah, because I like to think we've already formed a nice little community here, and I think we can turn it into a force for the greater good. We can welcome new people into it, and yeah, do our best to make sure we're all staying connected, we're staying in touch, we're staying occupied. And as I said before, there may be some people out there who are really struggling. And if just one of those people can stumble across this Facebook page and find some new friends and, you know, help retain a little bit of sanity, I will be very, very happy, and it will make it totally worthwhile. But back to my research challenge. Yeah, I found this family with the surname Scattergood. So scatter as you would scatter, with good with an E on the end, Goode. And that's obviously quite an unusual surname. I've run out of hints to follow, but I'm hoping with a name like Scattergood, they shouldn't be too tricky to trace. So that is my mission for the next couple of weeks. Linda Robertson, as long as we don't break the internet. Oh, imagine if that happened. I dread. I dread to think. Touch wood. I'm touching wood here. Um, and saying, I'm hoping it doesn't go on too long. My subscription finishes next month, and we'll need to use library. And the dreading they close. Yeah, I think, as I said, we're reacting to this situation as it is unfolding, and we will keep you updated on all our plans going forward. You know, we the kind of well-being and happiness of all our customers and customers as well web members is really important to us. So anything we can do to help each other during these trying times, which I guess they are, I can assure you we're going to do. Jamie Gunn, good day from Melbourne. Jamie, I salute you. It must be very, very early in the morning there. I'm very happy you're here. Jane McLean, hello Jane. Well, actually, Jane McLean, this could be this could be a good one for you. I'm about to do some. Well, in a bit, I'll be talking about some McLean family history I've done for another McLean. Might not be relatives of yours, but who knows? Ruth, it has been a while. Hope you're doing well, Ruth. I haven't seen you in a very long time. Um, Rosie's going to is planning on Rosie is planning to start planting veg in the garden, so we don't start. I don't think it'll come to that, but still, you may be being sensible there. And Sylvia is working on writing my thesis. I have no excuse for not getting on with it. Well, Sylvia, I bet you found these. Given the work I know you've done previously, Sylvia, with the history of inoculation records, and the spread of diseases in working class communities, I bet you've been watching these situations quite closely. And feel free to tell others about the fascinating work you do, Sylvia, because it is very, very interesting indeed. Hello, Trudy from Bristol, self-isolating. Well, you're with fellow self-isolators here. Yeah, let's do self-distancing together. We don't have to do it on our own. I think my go-to line is going to be, self-isolating doesn't mean we have to become isolated. And by tuning into this, we're not. So William's saying, I guess for question of the week, filling time depends on whether going outside in the garden. Got a modern railway too. Oh, I will be checking out those pics once this is done. I imagine that's a great way to actually distract yourself. As for goals, not set any yet, but may do soon. Well, I think you'll have plenty of time to. Yeah, Ralston's adding a good point there about checking your tree. And Miko has said, if anyone would, yes, I will echo here. If anyone is if anyone does have time on their hands and would like to do something that would help others, as well as Miko is looking for volunteers to help transcribe records. So you could have a direct hand in the likes of all the fantastic new Scottish material that we've been adding over the past couple of months. We couldn't do that without volunteers, and we are always after more. So don't be shy. You'll have fun in the process as well. And Jane saying, being as my weekly dance lesson is now postponed, as from next week, I'll be getting back at it with my family history. It is the perfect distraction, as well as my family tree. I have been trying to play a little bit of guitar. It's not going very well. Not going very well at all, but who knows? In a couple of weeks, I might be like Hendrix. And tomorrow, I'm actually planning on checking out one of the National Trust properties because I think it's fantastic that um, they've opened up their parks. Obviously, you still have to practice social distancing. But I was having a look before, and there's some wonderful ones around mine, so that is what I'm going to do. Anyway, Adele is saying, I'm going through a list of relations relating back to my third great-grandfather. A distant cousin has compiled over a number of years and has gone 7 generations. Obviously, along the way, he missed some people out, so I'm going to add them all in. However, going back to my third great-grandfather, it is a total dead end. Born in 1822, allegedly in Leicester, but no one can find any birth records of him, only that he appeared in the 1841 census. Well, Adele, you've asked a question in the right place. That's another thing I forgot to say. If you are tuning into these for the first time, we do these every single week. We'll be doing many more things like this, not just on a Friday. I think we'll be looking to do them multiple times a week, but as well as just discussing our favorite hobby. It's also a great place to ask questions if you are relatively new, or even if you're not and you've just hit a big solid brick wall. A lot of the people that watch these videos really know their stuff and are always willing to help others. So if you do have any questions, get them in. And Linda's just had a massively exciting breakthrough. Prime example of what I said there. Someone kindly offered to look at a burial that she'd not found. Love that, paying it forward. It's what we do on here, and it's really good to see. To look at a burial record and not found for a great grandfather and his older two daughters, all in South Africa. Wow. Within 5 hours, I had 3 burials, one marriage, and an obituary. I've been looking since 2010. That is a great brick wall busting story. Thank you for sharing that. Wow, I'm already 20 minutes in and I haven't even started on what I was actually going to talk about today. So I probably should, shouldn't I? So yeah, as well as telling you about all the community stuff we've got planned for the next couple of days, and to remind you all just to keep an eye on our Facebook page. Um, Today I wanted to have a quick look at the records we've added over the past 2 weeks, because obviously I didn't do one of these last week. I finally wanted to share with you some of the cool stuff we found from the research project we did for ITV's Loose Women. If you're not watching from the UK, ITV's Loose Women is a very popular daytime panel show. They have a panel of different female hosts who rotate, and we were asked to look into the family trees of them because they were doing a section on family history. We found so much stuff, and even if you haven't heard of them, I think these stories will be interesting because they show that every family does have not just one story but multiple fascinating stories. And if you carry on going down enough lines, eventually you will hit something remarkable, because for every single one of them we researched, without fail, we found something really, really interesting, and it was all stuff they had no idea about at all. So yeah, I'll tell you about that in a little bit. And obviously, even though we've kind of St. Patrick's Day has passed us by with all the 24-hour news feed about the virus, I couldn't let it go without mentioning a few tips for tracing Irish research. And we do have some really, really good blogs up on our site that will help you learn more about that. So that is the general summary of what I'm going to be talking about today. Just have another quick look at comments. Denise McKnight saying, our small local garden centre started offering deliveries. Maybe you, oh, I think it's saying about someone asking about gardens. But yeah, well, actually, it's just reminded me, another thing I wanted to say about this whole situation is it's so nice to see examples of people pulling together. I mean, I know we've seen the news of stories around panic buying and people being a little selfish around hoarding and stuff, but at the same time, you're seeing examples of real community spirit. So in the street I live in, we had a little slip pass through our door today of one of our neighbours up the street saying, "Listen, if you are isolated, if you're elderly and you can't go out yourself, if you need groceries, I will go out and get it for you." I thought that was really nice, and it's great to see more and more people doing that. Denise McKnight, you're doing a online genealogy course. Should keep you busy for a while. Well, I imagine some other viewers would be quite interested in that, Denise. So I don't know if you've got a link or something you could share a little bit more information. Um, anyway, right. Karen, hi, Alex from Harrogate. I hope you are keeping safe and sane. I'm keeping safe. I'm not quite sure about sane. Uh, we'll see what state my sanity is by the time we do next week's Friday. So let's say that. Oh, and Sue Adams had a question about the Lincolnshire parish registers. Were they transcribed in house by Linda FHS or some other party? Oh, I'm afraid off the top of my head I couldn't tell you, but Miko's watching and he may be able to. Marie, lovely to see you, Marie. Marie is my pal who I love hanging out with at Roots Tech, watching from Belgium. Stay safe to you too, Marie. Right, records. I really do need to crack on with this, don't I? We're nearly at past already. So, what have we released this week? Well, we release new records every week. If you didn't know, we do. We send out emails. We also put it up on our blog. I'll go through these very quickly because I want to get into the real interesting stuff. Interesting to me, anyway. So we've done this week. We've got a big old update to Middlesex baptisms. About 17,000 new records covering 4 parishes, the names of which I can't remember. But if you do want to know more about that, go to the What's New section of our blog. I think Ellie could even post a link in the comments now. We've also added an update to our collection of Cambridgeshire burials, about 6,000 of them, from a cemetery in a town called Wisbeck, which is also known as the capital of the Fens. But I guess the reason I wanted to highlight this was because, not too sales pitchy, I promise, but our parish record collection does grow pretty much every single month. And the list of exclusive counties is getting longer and longer. So at the moment, if you've got ancestors in Cheshire, Devon, Hertfordshire, East Kent, Leicestershire, Lincolnshire, Rutland, Shropshire, Staffordshire, Surrey, Wales, Warwickshire, Westminster. No, that's what if they're Catholic, I think. Yorkshire, you kind of have to come to Findmypast because we we have the best parish collections for those areas. There are other areas I'm forgetting, but those are just a few. We've also added a load of new Jamaican civil death registrations, and another. I keep on saying another reason. One of the reasons I want to highlight this as well was because some of you may have noticed over probably the past year we have started to diversify our collections quite significantly. Traditionally, our coverage was very much in, when I say English speaking countries, I mean countries where British or Irish people settled in large numbers. So generally Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, obviously England, Wales, Ireland, Scotland. But we have started to add civil birth, marriage, death indexes and some church ones from a variety of countries around the Caribbean, Central America, South America, Asia. I think even more than that. And recently, we also started diversifying our newspapers as well. So we've started adding a load of Commonwealth titles to our newspaper collection, particularly from places like Canada and Jamaica, which is very exciting for us. And good evidence of that is one of the newspapers we've added this week is the Royal Gazette of Jamaica, covering the years 1779 all the way up to 1840, and it is a very, very, very interesting publication. Obviously, it was written during a completely different period of history, and you get a really unfiltered view of what life was like in colonial Jamaica. I mean, you do see things that to modern sensibilities are very shocking. So you see things like notices for runaway slaves and things like that. But again, I think that's why newspaper digitization is so important, because it does allow us to look at history as it happened at that time. When you're reading kind of contemporary news coverage of events from the past, you don't have that filter of looking at it with modern eye. Well, apart from your own, but you're reading it as it would have been experienced then, and I think that's one of the really remarkable things about newspapers. Anyway, I will stop eulogizing about the wonders of newspapers, because most of you know how great they are already. Um, Kim said something that I would like to make progress on would be my great uncle's mother. No birth registered, but there is a baptism in 1885. No marriage or death yet either. Hopefully, being self-isolated will give me more time to focus. Why don't you pop his name in the comments, and someone may even fancy having a look for you. You've just reminded me of another thing as well. While we're also planning the kind of things we want to do to keep everybody connected and occupied over the next couple of weeks, we'd love to hear your thoughts. What kind of things would you like to see us do? What kind of things do you think would work well? Would it be research challenges? Would it be kind of like communal research activities where maybe people can submit their brick walls and a lucky person will be picked out of a hat and we can share that to the wider group and then everyone can go off and attack it? Love to hear your ideas. Thank you, Ali, for posting the link. You're a star. So I'm just looking at all your comments there. Right. Back to this week's records. So in the spirit of St. Patrick's Day, we've added a load of brand new and exclusive. Sorry, I'm just laughing at comments. We've added a load of new and exclusive Irish records. So we've added over 163,000 records from the Waterford Poor Law Union Board of Guardian Minute Books. Sorry, that doesn't trip off the tongue particularly easily. And this is another great example of how our Poor Law collection for Ireland is very strong and does continue to grow. But I'm trying to think what's in there. So, minute books are fascinating. They really do offer, I think it's fair to say, unparalleled insights into what life actually was like in a workhouse. And of course, the workhouse in Ireland was one of the most feared institutions from Irish history. You really didn't want to end up in there. If your ancestor was in a workhouse, if they were an inmate, if they were a supplier, or even if they worked there, you could find them mentioned in these minute books. You'll find things like, notes on inmate marriages, announcements, lists of orphan children, people who are asking for help to emigrate to the New World, particularly during the period of the famine. Yeah, they're just really fascinating records. We've also got ones from Dublin, Clare, Donegal, Sligo, so check them out. But yeah, the other records we've added this week are big thanks to Galway County Council, because these were released as part of an exclusive partnership we have with them. We've added a load of Galway Poor Law Union records covering 10 unions across Galway. These go from about 1849 up to 1921. There's a lot of different things in there. Let's just have a double check to remind myself, because sometimes I do need help remembering. You will have, let's see, what kinds of records you've got. A lot. Have a look. Have a look at the blog. That'll give you more information. And as well as the poor law unions we've done with the council, we've also added a brand new collection of Galway burials. Um, these cover a variety of burial grounds which were operated by Galway County Council, I think, around the area of Town or Tuam, between about 1882 and 1920. And last but not least, we have a collection of estate records from the St. George Mansur. Sorry, my pronunciation is terrible. Estate in counties Galway and Clare. So these go from about 1832 back to 1775, and if your ancestor rented land on this estate, these records are very useful as a census substitute, and I will explain why in just a second. So yeah, that's the records we've added this week. Let's have another quick look at the comments. I agree, Kim. I think sharing brick walls could be quite a fun one, couldn't it? Get us all researching together, compare notes, and it's a bit like a treasure hunt, isn't it? And someone will actually benefit from it on the other side. That'd be quite fun actually. Maybe we could have a think about awarding some prizes or someone for anybody who busts it first, like a kind of genealogy race. Oh wow, Ricky Oxley. Hi, sorry I'm late. Joining you post lockdown garden workout in Italy. Wow. Stay safe, Ricky. I hope you're all right out there. News out of Italy seems to be growing worse by the day. But yeah, glad you're tuning in. Yeah, people seem to like the brick wall busting solutions. I think we're going to look into that one. Bye bye, Rosie. Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, Sylvia's saying workhouse minute books and other workhouse records. They are rather good, aren't they? And William Shaw is saying, we think my great grandparents may have run a workhouse in the Aldland, Cheshire area. I know it well. I grew up not that far away from there. As the family were very wealthy farmers, and in Connacht, see another reason for being there. I noticed this in the records. Yeah, as I said, they could have been. It could be that they were suppliers. If they were wealthy farmers, obviously creating produce, it's probably more likely that they were supplying the workhouse, and that's why they would have been entered into the records. But definitely worth some further investigation. What am I like? I'm already running out of time. Right, very quickly, very quickly, before, because I really did. I've been looking forward to telling you about the loose women research. Um, was few tips for tracing Irish ancestors. Irish research is pretty tricky. It's known as being tough, and that is for good reason. And that's why when we release things like estate records that may seem quite small, we do like to talk about them, because they do provide valuable substitutes for other Irish records that sadly no longer exist. So why is Irish research so tricky? Well, a big part of it, obviously, is because of the missing Irish census records. So sadly, the vast majority of Ireland's 19th century census records were destroyed in a fire at the Public Records Office of Ireland in 1922, and only a few very charred fragments survive. So, unlike in the UK and the US, you don't have this continual decade by decade record of the population going back. And, obviously, you probably all know how beneficial censuses are. You can, if you're lucky, you can get from in the UK like 1911 to 1841 within sometimes an hour, just by jumping back through the generations, because you've got parents and children, grandparents sometimes all listed in the same household. Sadly, you don't have that at hand in Ireland, but there are other things you can use. So, like landed estate court rentals, just like the records we've added. We've got a big collection up on Findmypast called Landed Estates Court Rentals 1850 to 1885. That's about 500,000 records of tenants in Ireland during the 19th century. Really, 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 really useful value at the census substitute if you just cannot place your Irish ancestors. And also, given the fact that there was there was less variation in names in Ireland, than in England. So if you find a William O'Donnell or something like that, there could be many of them in one town or one county. So often attaching a place to your Irish ancestry, if you only have a name, is key to taking your research further, and that's why things like this are really, really useful. As well as estate and court rentals, you can also the Griffiths records are very, 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 very useful. You've got Griffiths valuation. That dates from about 1847 to 1864, so quite limited in scope, but it does cover the entirety of the island of Ireland, and it's got about 2.9 million records in there, so pretty comprehensive for that small date period. You've also got all the surveys, maps, and plans that were created by the Griffiths Company, I guess. So you can also see what the areas were like that your ancestors lived in. But I'd say two of the ones that you really should be looking at are dog licenses and petty sessions records, because they are very, very, very useful substitutes for finding 19th century Irish ancestors. The nature of the petty sessions court, it dealt with very, very small time offences. Anything from not paying a debt to incurring a fine for driving your cart on the wrong side of the road or something like that. I mean, you find some quite humorous examples. I found one for a chap who was brought before the petty sessions court for bringing a donkey into church. It's quite a funny one. But basically, what I'm trying to get at is it's not just people from the lower rungs of society. It's people from all walks of life, and it's your ancestor wasn't necessarily a criminal if they were brought in front of the courts. They could have been quite an upstanding member of their local community, but at some point they may still have been brought in front of the court of petty sessions. Maybe not even on trial. They may have been a witness. But basically, it's a big collection. It covers all parts of Ireland. There's a lot of people in there, so it's definitely worth looking in if you're struggling to find your Irish ancestors. Same with dog licenses. Obviously, for much of its history, Ireland was largely rural. The economy of Ireland, I should say. So lots of farmers in Ireland, and pretty much every farmer had a dog, and every farmer who had a dog had to apply for a dog license. And as well as telling you what kind of four-legged friend your Irish ancestor had, they'll also tell you where your ancestor was living. So again, very good census substitute. But of course, it's not just the direction of the census that makes things tricky. It's also the fact that civil registration started quite a bit later in Ireland that it did in the rest of the British Isles. So when you compare it to England and Wales, it did start quite a bit later actually. So 1837 was when civil registration began in earnest in England and Wales, but it didn't begin on the same scale in Ireland until 1864, and that was just for births and marriages. Non-Catholic marriages were registered from about 1845, so a little bit earlier, but Catholic marriages, which of course form the majority, weren't registered by the state until about 1864. So that means that there are often no birth, marriage, or death records for any event before those dates, which can be problematic. But don't forget, we do have 10 million Catholic sacramental registers for Ireland, covering baptisms, marriages, banns, burials, and these do date a lot earlier. They date back into the early 18th century, or is it late 18th century? Early or late, one of the two. I can't quite remember. And I believe they're actually free to access. So they're also very, very, very useful to look at. But I think place names in Ireland is also a thing that causes headaches for some people. One of the most common problems that researchers do face is just the sheer myriad of place names you encounter when you're doing Irish research. There are a lot. Um, and if you've never been to Ireland or you're not actually on the ground, knowing the difference between a parish or a townland, a civil registration district, a barony or a county can actually be very, very, very complicated. I'm quite lucky that I've got Niall who's actually over in Ireland. So if ever I have a question with something like this, I'm able to pick up the phone to Niall and go, Niall, can you you know, fix my English ignorance and tell me exactly where this place is. But not everyone has that option. There's no quick fix to this problem, but we have actually created a civil registration map which shows all the different districts and all the different and how they cross various county borders. I'm not sure exactly where that sits on the site, so I will try and pop it in the comments afterwards. Perhaps Ellie will be able to. But yeah, that's also worth checking out. And if you're looking to go further back, we do have some Irish collections that are actually very, very old. We've got wills, original wills of the Diocese of Dublin that go back to about 1272. We've got Farrar's Index to Irish Marriages, which goes back to 1771, predating even a lot of our Catholic records. We've got the Catholic Qualification and Convert Rolls. These are actually the cool history behind these. Not, I mean, dark history, but fascinating history. These date from about 1701 to 1845, and these are basically lists of people who pledged loyalty to the crown during the period of the really harsh penal laws that were enacted in Ireland by the English, where it meant that being a Catholic barred you from holding office, it barred you from certain positions in society, and life as a Catholic would have been much, much more difficult than the life of a Protestant. So many people were pragmatic and pledged loyalty to the crown to get around this and make life a little bit easier for themselves. And the names of these people are captured in these rolls. So yeah, that's kind of my very quick overview. And of course, as with the Welsh and as with the Scottish, naming patterns are something for you to just keep in the back of your mind as well. Traditionally, most Irish families would name their children in this order. So the eldest son would be named after his paternal grandfather. The second son would be named after his maternal grandfather. The third son would be named after his father. And the fourth son would be named after his father's oldest brother. Not sure if you're able to keep up with that. I'll do it again. Eldest son, named after paternal grandfather. Second son, named after maternal grandfather. Third son, named after the father. Fourth son, named after the father's oldest brother. And obviously, this wasn't true in every case, but if you find yourself in one of those tricky situations where you have I was going to say Declan Donnelly. I don't know why I thought that was a very common Irish name. But if you've got an ancestor with a very common name in Ireland, and you're finding 7 or 8 people the same, and you're really struggling to work out whether this branch of the family is actually a branch of your family, um, just this can help. This can help, particularly if you're wondering whether someone was someone's grandfather. Just yeah, naming patterns are useful. Anyway, I was actually going to talk through a few more things, but I found a blog post that I'm going to send to Ellie now. Ellie, if you're watching, could you, well, I know actually you are watching, could you kindly pop this in the comments? Because it's actually only on our US blog. But it's a really, really detailed guide, county by county, to all of Ireland's genealogy records. And it also includes a talk from our very own Brian Donovan. Very, very knowledgeable. So actually, it's a really, really, looking at it now, it's a fantastically comprehensive guide to various resources for, wow, this is very, very detailed. I hadn't realised it was that detailed. Well, there you go. That should be very, very, very helpful. Just having another look at the comments before I quickly talk about the loose women research. So Paul Van Dusen, I found some Irish by marriage relatives all changed their first names. Oh, it's so annoying when they do that. So my uncle, who was Eugene Peter Durnin, was always known as Tony Durnin. He married in his birth name, but the whole family had changed their Christian names. They were from Drogheda. Again, sorry for my pronunciations. Um, Oh, cool. Sorry, I've not been keeping an eye on the comments, and everybody is diving in, sharing their pearls of wisdom. Aren't you great? Thank you. Chris, as always, being an absolute champion, helping Karen get started. Ah, yeah, Cindy Pennington. Try Lost Cousins. Is that the blog? If you're talking about the blog, it is a good place. I know Peter who writes Lost Cousins, and it's a great site, so do check it out. Oh, great. William, I'm just seeing your comment. That's up to them, I guess. Which I can hear. I can hear my wife making a cup of tea in the background. I'm always tempted to ask for one, but no, I'll stick to the broadcast. Am I going to play you a song when you're finished? I don't think any of you deserve that. I don't think your ears deserve the punishment of listening to me massacre the guitar. To say I'm not particularly accomplished would be an understatement. Maybe one day, maybe if I get a bit of self-isolated practice in, I could wow you with something rather simple. But we'll see. Thank you, Ellie, for posting that. That is very, very, very handy. So I could see someone wanted to know what the role was called. The role of Oaths of Allegiance was called, I'll just get that up again. That is called Catholic Qualification and Convert Rolls, 1701, 1845. Actually, that's just reminded me. If you're struggling to find any set on the site, go to our A to Z of records. Go to our A to Z of records search. Pop in, Catholic convert, and it will bring you up all the available resources we have. You can pop in a place, a topic, a keyword. It's a great way. It's the fastest way of finding out whether we have what you're after. Right. Loose women. I was planning on kind of spending the whole hour talking about this. Now I've relegated it to the last 15 minutes. Bit of context, as I said at the start, Loose Women, very popular show over here. It's a daytime panel show hosted by a series of British lady celebrities, female celebrities. And we were asked to do the family trees for pretty much all of them, but we didn't do deep dives on all of them. The ones we ended up settling on were Stacey Solomon, Andrew McLean, Kay Adams, and Nadia Swahala. And actually, there's so much interesting stuff here. I think I'm going to serialize this. I'm not going to do all of them now. I'm going to do one or two, but we'll see how we get on for time. So, actually, let's do Nadia's first. Let's do Nadia. So, Nadia Swahala. Not sure if any of you are familiar with her, but I think she was on EastEnders. Her sister was also in Absolutely Fabulous. And her sister was actually on Who Do You Think You Are a couple of years ago, where they traced her mother's Duboc ancestry. So for that specific reason, we completely ignored that side of the family. We focused entirely on her paternal side. And it wasn't long before we started finding quite interesting things. So even by the time we got to her grandfather, a chap called Thomas Francis Lane, we found him in the 1939 register living in Surrey, Barnstead to be precise, with his wife and children. And she didn't know what his occupation was, and we found that he was actually working as a cinema projectionist at the time. It's not earth-shattering information, but still, just a little piece of information she wasn't actually aware of. And one of the things I like to do is just don't, when you find something out like that, don't just leave it there. You can take that piece of information further. So what we did to kind of bring this to life a bit was we found out what films would have been busting the box office at that time when he was working as a cinema projectionist in 1939, and actually it was The Wizard of Oz. Wizard of Oz hit screens pretty much exactly at the same time that the register was taken, and the two top films in the weeks after the register was taken were The Wizard of Oz and The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. So those are the films that Nadia's grandfather would have actually been playing from the projectionist booths at the back of the theatre. I like that because it just shows research doesn't have to stop with the record and you can find out a little bit more. But the other thing we spotted on her 1939 register entry was that it also revealed that he volunteered with the Civil Air Guard at Red Hill Aerodrome during World War II. Again, like with a piece of information about the cinema projectionists, we dove deeper into that. We did a bit of research about Red Hill RAF base, and we found out that it was actually the home of the RAF Volunteer Reserve Training School. And this was operated intensively up to and during the Second World War, obviously with the plan of getting as many trained pilots as possible. And it soon became a massive fighter base with Spitfires stationed there defending London and other parts of the southeast. Um, it was home to loads of Canadian and Polish squadrons, and the fact that her grandfather had volunteered in the Civil Air Guard meant that he was probably trained as a pilot. It was the whole scheme was originally formed around civilian flying clubs, you see, and subsidised tuition was offered to members in exchange for an honourable undertaking in times of emergency. So you'd learn to fly, and the government would get a reserve pilot for the Royal Air Force. So you'd get free flying lessons, or not free, you get subsidised flying lessons, and in time of war, you would be called up to fight. As a civilian organisation, though, I know they did wear a uniform. What am I talking about? They did wear a uniform. It was a dark blue boiler suit, not quite as fancy as the RAF ones, and they were usually privately purchased because it was a civilian organisation. And if you were distincted, if you did anything of particular distinction, you would get a badge. But anyway, yeah, that was one of that was just to show you that very early on into the research we found something quite interesting. But the real juicy discovery came when we started investigating the Taunton line of a family, the Tauntons. So Nadia's great 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 grandmother Eliza was one of 10 children born to an Isleworth based gardener. Isleworth just next door to Twickenham. Actually, Isleworth is about 20 minutes walk from where I'm sat right now. And actually, my ancestors were from Isleworth as well. Who knows? Maybe they bought, um, maybe they used Henry as a gardener. I don't know. They could have done. They did have a big house. Don't know what went wrong there. But anyway, so Nadia's great 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 grandmother Eliza, she was one of the 10 children, as I said, born to the man this gardener called Thomas Henry Taunton. So Thomas was born in 1794. So full disclosure, we did go quite far back to find this. And we found loads of records. His wife was a fruit dealer. And doing a little bit of extra research, it's quite reasonable to assume that he would have worked in the kind of rather lovely gardens of some of the big houses dotted around Twickenham and Strawberry Hill, which at that time it was quite a fashionable area, and you had people like Horace Walpole living there. So yeah, he was probably gardening the gardening for the great and good. Um, but it was Thomas's. That's it. I'm getting confused by my own research here. It was Thomas Henry Taunton's father, where one of the real stories came out. So Nadia's great great grandmother was Eliza. Her great great her great 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 grandfather was the gardener Thomas Henry Taunton, but her great 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 grandfather Henry Taunton, who was born in 1772, was a butcher, but we found an amazing discovery. So we identified Butcher Henry Taunton, born in 1772, Nadia's 5 times great grandfather, and we popped him into our general search to see what came back. And we already had a bit of information about him because we'd found him on all these records. We knew who his children were, we knew when he was born, we knew the name of his wife. And pretty quickly, we found a quite a detailed file for him in our collection of Bedlam records. Yeah, that's right. Nadia's 5 times great grandfather, Henry Taunton, was sent to the dreaded Bedlam Hospital. And this was quite a coincidence because I don't know how much you guys know about Nadia, but one of the things Nadia Swahal is actually known for is that she's quite a big advocate of mental health charities and talking about mental health. So for her, this was amazing. Mental health is always something she's been quite passionate about, and then all of a sudden she discovers that her 5 times great grandfather was sent to probably the most notorious asylum in world history. Really, I mean, the word is now synonymous with chaos, isn't it? Bedlam. it generated its own word. Um, and if you haven't viewed our Bedlam records, it doesn't matter, irrespective of whether you had ancestors who were sent to them anyway, you really should because they're so detailed. Um, and Henry's patient file was no different. So anyway, a little bit about Henry. So he was indentured. We didn't just find him in the Bedlam records. We found all his apprentice records and everything. So we found that he was apprenticed under a master butcher named John Allen in St Anne's, Soho, in 1778 when he was just 6 years old. Crazy. In 1793, we found all these other details about him before I get to the Bedlam record. So in 1778, we found out that he was apprenticed at just 6 years old. In 1793, we found that he was assaulted by a married couple called Walker and Sarah Williams, who were charged with ill using him against the peace. I imagine they were probably, they maybe abducted him and tried to compel him to do a crime in Oliver Twist style. And he gave evidence against them at Guildford Quarter Sessions on the 6th of July 1793. So we found all these different records about it. It was great. But it was the Bedlam patient file that was really, really interesting. It was 2 pages. One was like a kind of grid that outlined his symptoms, and the other page was in doctor's notes, are quite hard to understand at first, so I've kind of filled in a few gaps, really spelling out the symptoms quite clearly. So I will read it to you now. So it says Henry Taunton, aged 45, admitted May the 9th, 1832. So it shows you how detailed these Bedlam records are. It says, was in St Luke's, which was another famous asylum, about 6 months ago, and discharged and cured about 2 years ago, and then lived at Isleworth as a butcher till about 4 or 5 months ago, when he again became insane. A quarrel. So this is written in note form if it sounds a bit odd. So he had a quarrel and then left his home and went to his daughter, where he conducted himself most violently, and the parish officer of Isleworth brought him to Putney, to which parish he belongs. He was then taken to the poorhouse. He conducted himself well there till about 3 weeks ago, when he heard of a misfortune in his family, and became so violent as to alarm the whole neighbourhood, talking very irrationally. And then the grid lays it out. So it says, whether hereditary, has a son in St Luke's, workhouse parents. So, I mean, it shows what a troubled life he had. His parents were in the workhouse. One of his sons was also in an asylum. Health, good, no fits, lucid intervals. Then it says remissions. It says suffered to go about worse by the hootings of boys, not mischievous in general. It's quite a mysterious sentence, that, and I'm trying to work out myself what it could mean. Suffered to go about worse by the hootings of boys. I'm wondering whether that means that while he was out and about in his community, local boys were shouting abuse at him, and that's what exacerbated his symptoms. It says habits of life, business, and education, as above. Diseased. This is my favourite line from it. I mean, it's a sad line, but it's the way language was used. The change of language over time fascinates me. Diseased ideas. They just put various. Where confined before and how treated at the workhouse. So anyway, we did a little bit of looking. We did a little bit of digging into Henry's life, and we wanted to find out what this family tragedy was that kind of, pushed the poor fellow over the edge. And it was a big one. His wife died. He was widowed. Um, he'd obviously had quite a difficult life. He was apprenticed at the age of 6. His parents were in the workhouse. He had this kind of obviously quite disturbing incident when he was a child, where he was abducted and assaulted by 2 older people who tried to ill use him against the peace, and he was dragged up in court when he would only been about 10 or 11 years old. He had a big family, lots of kids to care for, and his wife dies, and this is the thing that pushes him over the edge. And you've also got to wonder whether, how grief would have been treated back then. Was he genuinely mentally unwell, or was he a man who was just pushed to his wits' end, and was it more of an emotional breakdown than full on lapse in sanity? Who knows? But yeah, just so detailed, those records. It shows how you can find out so much. And of course, quick note on Bedlam as well. It was notorious for a reason. It was not a nice place. It was not somewhere you wanted to end up. Um, so, so you had St Luke's and New Bedlam. So St Luke's was originally founded in 1951. That was for the treatment of incurable pauper lunatics by a group of, I guess, philanthropic apothecaries and others, really. And it was the second ever public institution created to look after mentally ill people after the Hospital of St Mary of Bethlehem, otherwise known as Bedlam, which was founded, get this, founded in 1246. Crazy. The premises were on Old Street, which is actually where our office is now. So the Findmypast office is literally around the corner from Bedlam. Um, but yeah, by the time Henry was admitted to Bedlam, that one had been demolished, and they built a new one at St George's Fields, which was New Bedlam. Um, and yeah, it was just not a nice place. As soon problems with the new building were discovered straight away. The steam heating didn't function properly. The basement galleries were damp. The windows of the upper stories were unglazed. So people sleeping in these cold, wet cells were exposed to the full blast of the elements. Completely darkened, no lighting, no windows, often shackled to the floor. Beggars belief, really. And even though they did start putting glass in the windows in 1816, um, the governors initially supported the decision to just leave them. And this was because they mistakenly believed that ventilation prevented the build-up of disagree. I love this phrase. The disagreeable effluvias peculiar to all madhouses. Obviously, shows how our understanding of these things has completely changed. But 6 years before Henry was admitted, the conditions were even worse. Patients were in these galleries were not classified in any logical manner. They were just put there. So someone who was suffering from something quite mild could be put in the same cell as someone who was genuinely, severely, dangerously mentally ill. Many patients were left chained and completely naked. There was all these reports that highlighted bestial treatment of the inmates by thuggish asylum keepers, many of which were taking bribes and there's loads about this in our newspaper collection. Just type in Bedlam and you'll read the reports. Really awful reading. Yeah, so I guess that was one of the highlights from Nadia's. I mean, it's an unfortunate highlight, but that was one of the most interesting things we found from Nadia's tree, and it's a fascinating story that directly ties her family to one of the most famous institutions in British history, I guess. So famous that there's even a word now. There's even a word, Bedlam now. But yeah, I guess I'm probably going to leave it there. I could carry on talking for hours about all the loose women research, and I'm going to stagger it. So next week we'll take a look at Stacey Solomon's family tree. She had some really cool ancestors. And yeah, in the meantime, thank you very much everybody for tuning in. It's been really great to see all the comments, everybody helping each other out. Patty, thank you very much, Patty. That is really nice. I love seeing these. Makes it worthwhile. Thank you very much. And again, thank you to everyone tuning in. Seeing everybody help each other out genuinely is a pleasure. And I think we're in a position, all of us here, to expand this and do some real good over the next coming weeks. So yeah, let's come together, self-isolate together, and I will see you next Friday. Before I go, though, actually, as I am in my own house, I couldn't resist showing you my favourite ancestors. So I've talked about my showbiz ones. Well, here they are. So sorry about the glare from the screen. So these two, oh, it's flipped. These two here are my great grandparents on my mother's side. And they were quite well-known local performers in Huddersfield. They did their own Punch and Judy show there, as you can see. This is Professor Chris Leno's very popular Living Marionette show. And below is their son, who followed them into the family trade and was quite an accomplished magician, ventriloquist. As you can see there, his dummy was called Johnny Greenwood. And there he is in later life playing the organ, because he was also quite an accomplished organ player. So yeah, these are my probably my favourite ancestors, just because they look great fun, don't they? I would have loved to have got to know them. And thanks to all the stories my granddad told me, I kind of feel like I did. But anyway, yeah, I thought that would be a nice note to leave this on. Take care, everybody. And right, I'm going to put some practice in. I might see you out with a tune sometimes. I'm not feeling ready for it today. Maybe another time. But yeah, thank you very much for tuning in, everybody. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of you over the coming days. And yeah, let's come together, help each other out, and stay busy, positive, and not isolated. Great. So take care, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Stay safe. Look after yourselves, and we will all stay in touch. All right. Bye bye.